Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buffalo SportsCenter. I am Don, and it is the final week of the 2023 regular season for the NFL. And today I'm going to preview a huge matchup between the 10-6 Buffalo Bills and the 11-5 Miami Dolphins. But before I get to whoever wins this game, make sure to hit that like button and to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok and join our Discord because YouTube's notification system is broken every now and then. All of those links are down in the description below. Now, let's discuss a little bit about the Miami Dolphins first, who are limping after a huge thumping against the Baltimore Ravens last week. They lost that game 56-19. It wasn't close. It was never close. There was a flirting moment at the beginning of the game where Miami looked like they could pull off another stunner, where they went up 7-0, and then they were driving, tied at 7, and 2 on 3rd and goal, throws it to the back of the end zone on a slant to Tyreek Hill, and he inexplicably dropped the ball. He bobbled it, then caught it, but by the time he caught it, he was already out of bounds, and right there, it was 10-7. Instead of Miami going up by a full touchdown and reclaiming the momentum, life just seemed to dissipate. It seemed to disappear from that entire Miami Dolphins sidelines. And for the rest of the game, the defense couldn't hold a candle to Lamar Jackson and that Baltimore Ravens offense. They dominated the Dolphins. And to make matters worse for this Dolphins defense, not only did they give up 56 points, many of which came in garbage time, but they also suffered some massive injuries on the back end. First off, Xavier Howard, their star cornerback, he's going to be out for this weekend's game against Buffalo. In his place will likely be Eli Apple. We could also see some Justin Bethel and Kader Kohou, but Kohou prefers to play on the right side. Now, Miami will still have Jalen Ramsey, who did not appear in that Week 4 game in Buffalo. So Ramsey has been a good addition for the Dolphins. He's been productive, but he's going to have to carry the load. And while it's a natural assumption to think that Stephon Diggs will be getting guarded by Jalen Ramsey, let's take a moment to remember that Ramsey has only mainly played on the right side. So the Bills could easily scheme Stephon Diggs to where he doesn't have to run routes on the right side. He could go to that left side and target whoever fills in the hole that Xavier Howard left. And we also got to talk about Jalen Phillips. Again, will not be in this matchup. He suffered a season-ending injury on Black Friday against the New York Jets. And another huge injury now for the Dolphins. Bradley Chubb has suffered a season-ending knee injury. He picked that one up in garbage time when the Dolphins were down by 30 against the Ravens. An absolute killer injury. And Bradley Chubb was having a fine season for the Dolphins. It looked like he finally got settled in his new home after being traded from Denver to Miami last season. Bradley Chubb wasn't really productive then. He's been much more productive this season. But with him gone, this depth for the Dolphins are going to be tested. Emmanuel Ogbah has had a really inconsistent year. He's been scratched multiple times, made inactive again and again. He's going to have to step up big time for the Miami Dolphins. Andrew Van Ginkel, he's got to step up as well. He's been pretty decent, but he's mainly been a rotational guy, first one off the bench. If you were to think about it in basketball terms, he's your number 5, and he's a really good number 5, a guy that can come off the bench and have a really good impact for a main backup. But he's going to have to really take the load here, and Cameron Good, another linebacker, he's going to have to step up here for the Miami Dolphins. But let's now talk about their offense, who, like the defense, has suffered a number of injuries, not limited to Jalen Waddle. He may play against the Bills, may not, but if he does suit up and become active against the Buffalo Bills, I don't expect that he'll have a major impact. He's still only a week and a half removed from a high ankle sprain, and those typically take about 3 weeks to solve. So my assumption was that he wouldn't be ready to go until the wild card game for Miami, but they may try to force him back. But if he does, I wouldn't expect to see him much on the field. Expect him to be snap limited, not have too many impact plays. Now, Tyreek Hill, he's been dealing with a couple of nagging injuries, but expect him to suit up. And I mentioned already he had that big drop, but overall this season, Tyreek Hill's been the best wide receiver in football. That's not a debate. It's not just my opinion. It's fact. He's had over 1,700 reception yards. Tua has been really good with him. They found a good chemistry together. And speaking of Tua Tagovailoa, last week did not do him any favors in terms of silencing his doubters. Tua has always had the knock that he can never perform in the big games. Yet when you look at it, he did okay against the Baltimore Ravens. He went 22 for 38, 237 yards and 2 touchdown passes. The problem is the turnovers really killed this Miami offense. They had 1 fumble loss, they had 2 picks thrown by Tua, and they were not very efficient on 4th down. They went for 4th down 4 times, only picked it up 2 times. And on defense, they also gave up a long 4th down touchdown to Isaiah Likely. So 4th down wasn't Miami's friend on Sunday. And for Tua, he's got to be better, but at least he has Devon Achane back, and he looks to be fully healthy now. And last week, he had a really good game, 107 yards on 14 carries. Didn't score, but he was very efficient on the ground. He did score through the air, though, passing touchdown from Tua. And so did Cedric Wilson. Of course, Tyreek Hill is still existing. Durham Smythe is a solid tight end. Jeff Wilson, okay. Raheem Mostert, though, did not play against the Baltimore Ravens. He is questionable to play this week against the Bills. So that's already Mostert, Waddle. And I didn't even mention the Dolphins' offensive line has really struggled this year due to injuries, and it's not going to end for them. Connor Williams, their starting guard, is done. He is out for the season. He's going to be done for at least a month. And considering that how the Dolphins have looked, they probably won't be playing football in another month. Same with the Bills. But Connor Williams, likely done for the season. That's just another injury for Miami to contend with. So where Miami is hurting injury-wise, the Bills, they had that injury crisis earlier in the season, and now it seems like they've finally been able to make it work. Terrell Dodson and Terrell Bernard on defense have really stepped up ever since Matt Milano went down with an injury and Tremaine Edmonds signed with the Chicago Bears. It's been a phenomenal year for those 2 linebackers. One of the biggest surprises of the season for me has been the fact that the Bills' defense has somehow, some way been able to really pick up the load and carry this Bills team, because at times the offense has just looked horrible. They have not been consistent whatsoever, but this defense has, and the face of this defense has to be right now Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver is turning into Aaron Donald right before our eyes, and I was skeptical. I've heard that comparison made. That comparison was being made when he was in the draft coming out of Houston in college. Everyone was saying this is the next Aaron Donald, and this year we're finally seeing him put the pieces together, and he had another sack on Sunday. Terrell Bernard had 2 of his own, but Ed Oliver is now up to 9.5 sacks this year, 1 away from matching the Bills' all-time record that was set for sacks by a defensive tackle. That record was set by Kyle Williams. He had 10.5, so Ed Oliver could have a big day on Sunday, and he only needs 1 more to break the record. And with him as well, Greg Rousseau has been really solid this year. AJ Epinesa I've really liked. Shaq Lawson has been underrated for the Bills. You don't really notice him because he doesn't get any big play sacks, but I really like how he's stepped up and turned things around since the bye week. Christian Benford has been really good. Rasul Douglas, pickup at the trade deadline for the Bills, has been absolutely phenomenal. A couple more interceptions for him, and they brought him in thinking that he'd be a ball hawk cornerback. Well, Rasul Douglas is playing like a number 1 cornerback right now, and considering that Tre'Davious White could still come back, although I'm a little skeptical on if he will after that second knee injury / leg injury. Rasul Douglas is already a number 1 cornerback. Tre'Davious White, another number 1 cornerback. If those 2 are fully healthy at the same time, oh boy, that could be dangerous for other teams. And Taron Johnson, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, veterans, they've been here for a while. They've been playing, again, at a really solid pace. And the defense has just been really good. I was speechless last week. I didn't necessarily watch a whole ton of the second half. I only watched most of the first half. But in that first half, the defense, a lot of takeaways. They really tormented Bailey Zappi. And despite on the score sheet saying that the Patriots scored 21 points, the defense only gave up 2 touchdowns. It was the special teams that really screwed the pooch there for Buffalo by giving up that game-opening kickoff return for a touchdown. That was stupid. That was horrible. The Bills' special teams have struggled all year long. That's not on the defense. The defense had 4 takeaways, I believe, actually. So let's just cut to the chase. The defense is still really good. The offense, though, they need to be better. Josh Allen, very inefficient on the day. He went 15 for 30, 169 passing yards, and a touchdown, or no touchdown. He had 2 touchdown runs, but a pick. And he just wasn't good, especially at the beginning of the game in the first half. He was extremely inefficient. Really, a lot of miscommunication between him and his wide receivers, namely Trent Sherfield, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis didn't do much. The only connection where things seemed to work out was between him and Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir, 2 guys that fans have been clamoring to see more on the field. We haven't seen them more on the field. Khalil Shakir had some major third down catches in the second half, and Dalton Kincaid had that one huge reception going over the top of the secondary, finally clicking for Allen on the deep ball. And on the ground, James Cook really struggled on the day, only 48 yards on 16 carries. Ty Johnson was kind of efficient, but didn't see too much action. And again, I want to talk about Stephon Diggs. I mentioned it last week in the prior preview that Stephon Diggs has kind of disappeared for the Bills over the last month or so. He's really had his impact on the game reduced. Hasn't been catching the ball as much, and Joe Brady, our offensive coordinator, really needs to find a way to scheme Stephon Diggs into easy catches, open situations where he gets the ball into his hands. Because we saw in Week 4, when Gabe Davis has the ball in his hands, he's dangerous. He can score multiple touchdowns, but recently that just hasn't been happening. Everyone's wondering what the heck is going on with Diggs, but we shall see. We shall see what happens in the Week 18 game. But folks, that's it from me. It's Week 18. The winner gets the AFC East crown. The loser, well, it's either the 6th seed, the 7th seed, or you're out of the playoffs if you're Buffalo. For the Bills, they need to win in order to clinch a playoff berth. If you're the Dolphins, you want to win, clinch that number 3 seed, assuming that Kansas City does win this weekend. But if you're the Bills, again, if you lose, you could potentially be out of the playoffs if Jacksonville and Pittsburgh both win this weekend. Both of those games are on Saturday. This game is on Sunday Night Football. What a great way to end the regular season. And without further ado, let's see what the BSC panel is predicting for this Week 18 regular season AFC East showdown between the Bills and the Dolphins.
Something fun to watch every week.
2nd and 6. Josh looking down the sideline. It's Diggs with another flag out. He is able to get away from those 2 tacklers, and no one's going to touch him the rest of the way. Touchdown, Buffalo.
We talked about Kohu having to go against Diggs, and they're going to